Our scriptures today talked a lot about humility, as they did yesterday. So our lesson today is titled, A Three-Part Life's Message on Humility. Part 1, we need to practice humility in our personal and social lives. Humility is grounded in psychological awareness that everything I have is a gift from God, the Father Almighty. Therefore, I have no reason to boast on it or be prideful over it, and I must never use any of these God-given gifts to elevate myself above others. In other words, to aggrandize or glorify myself over others. Humility means the proper understanding of our own worth to society, to the world at large, our value in light of the various current economies of human needs, of human wants, of daily human requirements, knowledge, skills, and benefits. The humility that the gospel urges upon us has nothing at all to do with self-depreciation that leaves a person without proper self-esteem. We must simply admit the truth about ourselves. We don't know everything. We don't do everything perfectly, correctly, or perfectly ever. We are sinners. We are imperfect humans. If any of these was not correct, you would be God. Nevertheless, we also recognize that we are made in the image and likeness of God, and that we are called to help build the kingdom of God with our God-given gifts. We are not of value because of these gifts, but because we are loved by God as one of His children, redeemed by the precious blood of His only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. The quality of humility that Jesus talks about has a sociological dimension too, for Jesus invites us to associate with the so-called lower classes of society, and even society's outcasts, the lesser folks. Jesus, therefore, invites us to change our social patterns in such a way that we connect with those people with whom we are not related, with whom we would not ever associate otherwise: the homeless, the disabled, the elderly, the impoverished. These lesser people, as Jesus called them, or the street people, as they were first labeled in 1977. Connect with these people with love, interest, and true caring as he did, or as my great friend Dominic Boza does at the Red Cross of Minneapolis. Note, this latter is now so much easier, for as many of them have fallen with COVID-19 into the final of these groups, at least in their mind, in comparison to their previous life. Many have lost their homes, so they are now homeless. Many people you know are struggling to hold their homes as they have lost their jobs. They have lost everything. So those that would not consider themselves as the lesser folk reach out to them. Entertainers, cooks, fine chefs. Many people that do not use a computer for their work. They now need your help, need your love. Number 2, we need to remember that we are invited guests. We celebrate the coming banquet feast in heaven every time we come together at the Holy Altar for the Holy Eucharist. The Lord's Supper. We are the spiritually poor, the crippled, lame, and blind that Christ calls to himself. Our place is assured. Let us accept Jesus' invitation by actively participating in this Eucharistic celebration. Thomas Merton, a Trappist monk and writer, wrote upon receiving the Holy Communion that, as he received the sacrament for the first time as an adult, he thought to himself, "Heaven is entirely mine. Christ, hidden in this small host, is giving himself for me and to me, and with himself the entire Godhead and Trinity. Christ is born in me, his new Bethlehem, and sacrificed in me, his new Calvary, and risen in me. God calls out to me from his own immense depths." The book name is The Seven-Story Mountain. Thomas Merton sensed the wonder of God's invitation to communion and received it joyfully. So should we, every time. Number 3, never become too high that you can't be bending low. Booker T. Washington, the renowned Black educator, was an outstanding example of this truth. Shortly after he took over the presidency of the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, he was walking in an exclusive section of town, wherein he was stopped by a wealthy white woman. Not knowing the famous Mr. Washington by sight, she asked him if he would like to earn a few dollars by chopping wood for her. Because he had no pressing business at that moment, Professor Washington smiled, rolled up his sleeves, and proceeded to do the humble chore as she had requested. When he was finished, he carried the logs into the house and stacked them by the fireplace. A little girl of the house recognized him and later revealed his identity to the woman. The next morning, the very embarrassed lady went to call upon Dr. Washington in his offices at the Institute and apologized profusely. "It's perfectly all right, madam," he replied. "Occasionally, I enjoy a little manual labor. Besides, it's always a delight to do something for a friend." She shook his hand warmly and assured him that his meek and gracious attitude had endeared him and his work to her heart. Not long afterwards, she showed her admiration by persuading some of her very wealthy friends to join her in donating thousands of dollars to the Tuskegee Institute. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Use these 3 lessons daily.